Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Wednesday. I hope you all are having a fantastic week so far. We're going to sit down and talk about Everton's defence today, specifically Everton's defensive lineup and what I believe and what we all believe really is Everton's best defensive lineup, because if there's one thing that Carlo Ancelotti has done a lot of in the past few weeks or so, it's mix and match the defence up, whether it be Alex Iwobi playing right wing back, Alex Iwobi playing left wing back, Tom Davies playing right back, Ben Godfrey playing left back. He has certainly mixed the defence up an awful lot over the last 6 or 7 games. So I thought we'd sit down and we'd talk about who Everton's best defensive lineup is once everybody is fit. Left back, right back, 2 centre halves, and have a little bit of a discussion about it really, because something that we mentioned on Monday's review to the draw against Burnley last week is that we really need to start adding some defensive stability to this Everton team. We really need to be starting to see the same consistent defence week in, week out. Okay, I understand that injuries come into play with that, and obviously we can't see our best defensive lineup at the moment because our left back is out injured and our right back is out injured. But for me, we need to have a solid sort of best defensive lineup, if you like, and then we need to have players that are coming in for those players that pick up injuries, not just throwing anybody in that sort of you think can kick up football, throwing players in or putting players in there that are actually suited to those positions, and that are the second best backup to whoever your first left back is. For example, if your backup left back's Fabian Delph, then that's absolutely fine, but why was Alex Iwobi playing left wing back against Leeds a couple of weeks ago? Why didn't Fabian Delph play left back in that game? If your backup right back is John Joe Kenny, why isn't he anywhere near the squad? So we're going to talk about it today. We're going to go through what I think is our best defensive lineup once everybody is fit, and then talk about the players that can come in to replace those that are injured. Like I said, stability is absolutely massive, and I also think formation is massive in this as well. So we may as well talk about the formation before we get into getting into the details of the specific players. For me, it has to be at the 4 at the back formation. Now we've seen the 5 at the back over the last few weeks or so, and it hasn't worked, has it? Let's be perfectly honest. It worked against Fulham, and I honestly think it worked against Fulham because we had Luca Dean at left wing back, and Luca Dean is an absolutely fantastic fullback going forward. He is brilliant. He really is. Probably one of the best in world football, if not the best in world football at getting forward. He got 2 assists in that game. We were creating a lot down that left-hand side. We were also creating with Alex Iwobi playing right wing back. So it was a very attacking formation in that game because our fullbacks were attacking fullbacks. But since Luca Dean's picked up the injury and we've started with a 3-5-2 formation, or 3 at the back, 5 at the back, whatever you want to call it, against Leeds and Burnley last time out, it hasn't really worked, has it? Because the players that we've had at fullback haven't really been players that get forward an awful lot. Okay, Alex Iwobi does because that's his natural playing style, but also with the reverse to that is you don't get the natural defending ability from Alex Iwobi because he's not a defender. Fabian Delph playing left wing back against Burnley was just an absolute atrocity, not specifically because Fabian Delph isn't a great footballer, but because he's not a forward-thinking player whatsoever. He's not an attacker, so he should never have been at left wing-back. We've had Tom Davies playing right wing-back at a certain time. Ben Godfrey obviously come in, and we reverted back to a 4 at the back formation. So I wanted to talk about the formation first and foremost. I think it's got to be 4 at the back. Even when Luca Dean comes back in, the 5 at the back is an option with Luca Dean in there because it's something that we can exploit teams for by getting down those wings and, like I said, using the creativity of the likes of Dean and Coleman, although we're going to talk about Coleman later on in the stream. But until Luca Dean's fit, I don't even think we should be looking at a 5 at the back formation. It has to be 4. It simply doesn't. There's another reason for that as well, not just because we don't have attacking fullbacks when Luca Dean's out, but also because I really don't think the players fully understand that formation, to be honest with you. I really think the players get confused when they're having to play, with, say, Ben Godfrey's having to play with 2 other centre-backs next to him, or Yerry Mina's having to play with 2 other centre-backs. I don't think it benefits any of the back line, including Jordan Pickford. I don't think it benefits the midfield whatsoever. Look at the difference between when Everton started with that 3/5 at the back formation last week to when we moved into a 4 once Fabian Delph left the pitch. We were so much better because the players seemed to understand their roles a lot more and understand what they were doing. And this is something that I've picked up on a couple of times over the last few weeks and months or so, is whenever you're watching Everton on television, which obviously we've done a lot of recently because, of not being able to go to ground and stuff, and you see, you know, the formation will come up, or the team news will come up on Sky Sports or BT Sports or Amazon Prime or whatever you're watching it on, and they won't have a clue what formation it is. They won't have a clue who's playing where. They just won't understand that. I remember the game against Newcastle, and Carlo played that absolutely mad formation, and I remember them saying I think it was Sky Sports Studios beforehand, listen, we don't really know what formation he's going for here. We can't predict how Everton are going to line up. And, you know, Carlo has his pre-game interviews before the game, and he's asked, of course, what formation are you going for? We can't work it out. And he said, look, doesn't matter what formation I'm going for to you, it doesn't matter. And I've always sat there and thought, you know what, I like that. I don't care if Sky Sports or BT Sports or BBC know what formation we're going for. They don't need to know. Just get your head down and watch the game. You don't need to know the ins and outs. So I used to like when Carlo Ancelotti used to come out and say, look, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know what formation I'm going for, as long as these 11 players on the pitch know and understand their roles. And I used to sit back as a fan and think, I like that, and I don't know the formation because I don't need to know either, because I'm not on that pitch. I can sit here and scratch my head and go, I don't really understand what he's going for there. But I, you know, deep down sort of sat back and went, well, it doesn't really matter if I know or if I understand, because I've got trust that those players on the pitch understand and that those players on the pitch know the formation. So, again, don't care if Roy Keane or Gary Neville knows in the studio. Not really bothered that I don't know. As long as Carlo knows and those players know, then that's absolutely sound. But what's become quite apparent over the last few weeks or so, certainly with the 5 at the back formation, is that it almost appears like the players are sort of scratching their head as well, going, I'm not really sure, fully what I'm supposed to be doing here or how I'm supposed to be playing. And that's the biggest worry. If I'd have sat there and gone, well, I don't know, and, you know, the broadcasters don't know, but the players don't know as well, then that's obviously a big issue. If the players know, it doesn't matter. But over the last couple of weeks or so, certainly with the 5 at the back formation, it has seemed like the players are a little bit confused and don't fully understand how to play in that formation with that style. Certainly the midfield as well. Like I said, Alan and Abdoulaye Doucouré have performed well in patches over the last 5 or 6 weeks ago or so, and that's because I honestly don't think that formation suits them. I really, really don't. Look at how well we were playing at the start of the season in a 4-3-3. Look at how well those two were playing. Okay, we had the issue about the other midfielder, be it Gomez, be it Gylfi Sigurdsson, and whether we or not we need to bring in somebody else to partner Alan and Doucouré. But Alan and Doucouré were performing, let's be honest, 7 out of 10s near enough every week, if not more, in that 4-3-3 formation. Since we switched to the 5 at the back, they don't really seem like they understand what they're doing, and that was the biggest worry for me. It's okay if we're sitting here as fans scratching our heads, not knowing what's going on, but when the players are scratching their heads and sort of thinking, I don't fully understand this here, that's when there's a problem. And you could see that as soon as we turned back to a 4 at the back, it just seemed more familiar for everybody on the pitch. It just seemed like, okay, right, we know what we're doing now. We know how to we know how to play. We know the formation. And ultimately, we know what we're supposed to be doing, so get your head down and go. Don't get me wrong, we weren't fantastic once we switched back to a 4 at the back formation, because ultimately we didn't go on and win the game, but we were a lot more solid. We were sort of cutting out the stupid defensive errors. We were starting to control the game in patches. They were still having too much of the ball, but we looked better. We just looked more organised. We looked like we knew what we were doing defensively, and that for me is a big thing. It's the first time I think this season we've seen a 5 at the back and a 4 at the back used in the same game, and there was noticeable difference. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The formation, it has to be 4 at the back for me. Too many players don't completely understand how to play that 5 at the back formation, and on top of that, even if everybody knew how to play it and was perfectly confident playing it, the fullbacks, we have not got attacking fullbacks when Lucadine isn't fit. We haven't got the players to play in that formation. We simply haven't. A 3 at the back formation, 3 centre backs and 2 wing backs. Can be seen as a positive formation, because if your wing backs are good going forward, then you will create an awful lot of opportunities. Certainly when we've got Lucadine and Richarlison on that left hand side, we will create an awful lot of opportunities. But when we haven't got Lucadine there, and you're putting somebody like Fabian Delph there, who has got about as much forward thinking knowledge as this bottle of water sat next to me here, then it just completely voids the formation and having wing backs, and it basically just becomes, right, we're just going to get a lot of pressure heaped on us, because teams understand, well, they're playing a formation that benefits you, going forward, but they haven't got the fullbacks to allow that benefit. So for me, it has to be a 4 at the back formation. It really, really does. Before we get into any of the specifics, then, players who is in my best Everton defensive lineup, we're going to get into the live comments and see what you guys are saying. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel as well, don't forget to subscribe. Really, really do appreciate each and every one of you. I'm going to tweet the stream out as well so everybody knows that we are live. Hopefully get a few more people in. If you could share this live stream on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, text it to your mates, get everyone involved, and that would be absolutely brilliant. So let me just tweet the stream out and then we'll get into the live comments. Everton Botch says, we definitely need a new right back and left back in January, either transfer or loan. We're going to talk about the right back situation as well, because I do want to talk about the right back situation in a little moment. Left back, look, I think left back's an issue for Carlo Ancelotti to sort, to be perfectly honest with you. We've got Luca Dean there, who of course is our first choice left back, and when fit, nobody's going to compete with him. But beyond Luca Dean, when he does pick up injuries, when he does pick up suspensions, there's a real worry, because I don't understand why Niles Nkunku isn't being picked. I don't understand why he's not even in the 18. Look, if you'd have said to me on Saturday, right, okay, listen to this, Carlo doesn't fully trust Nkunku to go out and perform in the Premier League. He wants to go with the safer option, so he's going to start Delph and Nkunku's going to be on the bench. I'd hold my hands up and I'd say, I understand that. The fact that Nkunku wasn't even on the bench for me is a little bit of a worry, because that just makes no sense. Will says Nkunku needs to start. William says Carlo playing fine the Queen with our defenders. How's everyone doing? I'm not too bad. Will says, how can you not start an upcoming French talent being class in cup games and even against West Ham? It's the big question, isn't it, mate? That's the big question. Cheese and Cheese says, personally, I believe against teams that have more pace and threat and aerial threat, we should play Godfrey and Mason, but our best is probably Mason and Keane. Wayne says, we need a right back. Botcher's not a left back. Dean is class, and I think if we used him and Nkunku was good enough backup, either way he's backup, so play him. Cheese and Cheese says, Cam, just say it, Delph isn't a great footballer, can't even get the ball. No, Delph's not a great footballer whatsoever, and we should never have signed him. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't completely his fault as the way we were playing the other day, but he did not work in that formation whatsoever. Wimmy says, not off the back of Holgate's performances, Cheese. Godfrey should play left centre-back, Keane should play right centre-back, Holgate maybe right back if it's such a problem. And Cheese and Cheese says, Holgate is our best defender, mate. He hasn't been fit and shouldn't have played in the games he has. It was a huge risk. When he's fit, he leaves the rest of them in the dust with his ability. So let's go into that then. Let's go into talking about my personal best Everton backline, and get yours in the live comments. By the way, if you're watching in the live comments, get yours in the live comments. Who is your best Everton defensive backline, including right back and left back, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but throw them in there anyway. And if you're watching as a YouTube video, get them in the comments, and I'll be getting involved with as many of them as possible. So let's talk about fullbacks firstly, because I think it's the easiest place to start, and I still quite haven't made my mind up on the centre-backs, to be honest with you. So obviously left back, Luca Dean, again. Like we said before, nobody compares with Luca Dean. He's our best fullback. He's probably one of our best players, definitely in the top 3 best players at Everton Football Club. He's so good going forward. He's constantly creating opportunities, and he is a decent defender as well. Listen, full modern day fullbacks aren't known for being unbelievable defenders, but Luca Dean is a decent defender, and he is unbelievable going forward. Obviously, the left-back issues for when Luca Dean isn't in the team through injury or suspension. That's when you look at Carlo Ancelotti and you think, right, who is your backup left-back? And this has been a problem that Everton have come across over the last 2 weeks or so, is who is Everton's backup left-back? I want to talk about rotation before we go into talking about the back line as well. I want to talk about rotation because I understand that you can have a defensive back line, and you can, let's just say for argument's sake, our best defensive back line. This might necessarily be what I go for, but let's just say for argument's sake, our best defensive back line is Dean, Holgate, Keane, and Coleman. That's our best defensive back line, and that back line stays injury free throughout an entire Premier League season. the likelihood is you are still going to have to rotate that back line because players are going to become tired, players are going to need a rest, other players are going to need to go to keep them fit and to keep them happy and to keep the squad morale up. So I'm not saying at any point in this live stream we should have one set back four, and that does not change unless absolutely necessary. But what I'm saying is when you're rotating the team, when you're rotating a centre-back for a centre-back or a left-back for a left-back, it has to make sense. And we simply have to line up with, this is our best left-back, that's our second best left-back, that's our third best left-back, these are our best two centre-halves, that's the next centre-half in line number 3 who comes in if any one of those two need a rest. That's number 4 who comes in after number 3. This is our best right-back. This is our second best right-back. Not just, right, that's our best defensive back line. And if one of them gets injured or one of them has to come out, then we'll just fucking throw anyone in there and pray and hope for the best. We'll just stick Alex Iwobi in there at centre-half and fingers crossed. And I'm not, this might seem like I'm going in on Ancelotti, and I'm not going in on Ancelotti because I'm not a football manager. So obviously me sitting in front of a camera talking for 25 minutes about this is a lot easier than actually implementing this on a training pitch and in a footballing scenario and in real life, let's be honest. But I just think that that's that's the style that we need to adopt, is that we've got our best back line and then we allow for rotation by saying, right, okay, our best back line is Dean, Holgate, Keane and Coleman, and then every 4 weeks or so Holgate will drop out, Mina will go in, and then after that Keane might drop out, Godfrey might go in. After that, Nkunku might come in for the game after 10 games to give Luca Dean a rest. And you sort of know, right, okay, if X doesn't play, Y is going to play. Not, oh, so-and-so, Dean's injured this week, who's going to play at left-back? It's a toss of a coin between anybody. Shouldn't be like that. We need that solidity, like I said. We need that stability in the defensive lineup. That way, not only do we know as fans that, okay, we know who's going to come in here, we know who's going to replace said player who needs a rest, but the team also knows, right, okay, this is where I stand. I either need to improve to go up the level, the list, if you like, the pecking order, or at least I know where I am, at least I know what I'm fighting for, not just again, going into a week's training on a Monday, not really knowing where you're going to be playing on the Saturday or playing in a completely different positions that you were playing last week. So like I said, I understand that formation is that rotation is key, and I understand that we are going to need to rotate at times this season, but it has to be done in a managed manner for me. And again, I'm not Carlo Ancelotti, and it does sort of feel dirty just talking like this, because it makes it sound like I'm talking down Carlo Ancelotti and saying he doesn't know what he's doing. I'm absolutely not. He does know what he's doing. He's a manager that's won everything in world football. I'm literally a nobody to question Carlo Ancelotti or to talk to Carlo Ancelotti or to advise Carlo Ancelotti on this type of situation. He might well have that system, but he just wants to change it up a little bit. I don't know, but just for me personally, in my opinion, as a fan, that's what Everton need. We need a stable pecking order practically, and to say to players, look, you're number 3 in the line for left back here. If you want to improve, come out and go out and impress me in training, and then maybe it'd make it a little bit easier in the press conferences or when fans are asking us to say, where's Nkunku, and Carlo comes out and goes, look, we've got Dean, I've then got Delph, I've then got Nkunku, he's number 3. If he wants to get in the team, he needs to improve in training, he needs to work harder. And then if at the weekend it comes and Nkunku isn't in the 11 or the 18, then you sit back and you go, well, he obviously isn't working hard enough in training, he obviously needs to do more. Not saying that that's the issue, by the way, but just coming out and sort of saying in one press conference, I've got Niles Nkunku as a backup fullback, and then, a day later, literally 24 hours later, I'm not even be in the match day squad. It's just a little bit confusing. So like I said, we need that stability, not just throughout our main back line or our starting 11, our starting back 4, but also the players that come in to replace those players if need be, if that makes sense. Anyway, if you're enjoying, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Let's get into my best back line, then defensive back line for Everton. Left back, like I said, Luca Dean for me. Again, unmatched. I think Luca Dean is a fantastic left back. One of the, if not the best left backs in world football. I also think we have a lot more options to us when Luca Dean plays in this Everton team. I think we are open to maybe a 5 at the back or 3 at the back formation, even though a lot of us mightn't prefer it. It can work with Luca Dean in that team because he's so good going forward. When he's not in the team, it just simply does not work at all. That's pretty self-explanatory. I've then done a list of players underneath Luca Dean who I think should be next in line, etc. For me, our backup left back has to be Niles Nkunku. It absolutely has to be Niles Nkunku. He is the only other player in this Everton squad currently, not including youth players in the academy or under 23 players, that is a natural left back. He is a natural left back, and he should be in the matchday squad every single week, regardless of whether Lucas Digne's fit or not. When Lucas Digne isn't in the matchday squad through injury or suspension like we're seeing now, he should be starting. Don't get me wrong, I understand, like I said earlier on, if Carlo Ancelotti come out and said, look, I know everybody wants to see him, I know he's young, I know he's exciting, I know he's done well in the cup competitions, but I just don't want to throw him in yet because I trust Fabian Delph more, or I'd rather Fabian Delph experience, but he's going to be in the matchday squad. Then I think we'd all sit back and go, you know what, mightn't agree with that, and it's a little bit frustrating, but hold me hands up, fair enough. Because then in that situation, on Saturday when Fabian Delph, stumbled off injured after 20 minutes because his hamstring had gone, we'd be able to go, right, okay, here's Niles, he's going to get his opportunity now, he's going to be able to prove if he's good enough or not. But the fact that he's not even in the 18 is baffling for me. And like I said, it does remind me of the Anthony Gordon situation. And I don't want to sit here and talk about it for 20-30 minutes because I've probably spoke about the Anthony Gordon situation for about 5 hours combined over different live streams in the last few weeks or so, and I just feel like this is a very similar situation with Niles Nkunku. But the reality of the situation is he is our only natural left back behind Lucas Digne, and when Lucas Digne isn't in the matchday squad, be it through injury or suspension like we're seeing now, Nkunku simply has to be in that squad. If you don't want to start him because you're worried about experience or whether he's ready or not, fine, but there's no excuse for him to not be in that matchday squad for me. So for me, he's our backup left back again, very exciting. Look, I'm not going to sit here and be unrealistic. I'm not going to sit here and say, get Nkunku in, he'd be absolutely boss, he's going to put in a masterclass every time he plays. That's not realistic. The lad's still very young. He's only played in one Premier League game, which we lost, by the way. He wasn't awful in that game. He wasn't particularly brilliant. He didn't get forward an awful lot in that game. In the Carabao Cup games he's played in, he's been absolutely phenomenal. He's been man of the match, I think, in 2 of them. So his first 2 starts for Everton Football Club, he got man of the match. So I'm not under this false illusion that Niles Nkunku is the saviour, even though I put tweets out saying he's going to have a masterclass. I just think he's boss, so I love him. So that's why I do it. But I'm not under some false illusion that it's a certainty that Niles Nkunku can come in and perform at the level that we need him to. But when your backup options are either players playing out of position or a centre midfielder who's injury prone, who played left back a few times under Pep Guardiola, I'd just rather give the lad a go and just say, look, go out, let me see what you've got, let me see what you can do. And who knows, he might have an absolute disaster class and you might have to take him out and go, we can't do that again. He might go in there and play brilliantly and give Lucas Digne a run for his money when he returns to fitness. So for me, our backup left back has to be Niles Nkunku. I've then gone with Fabian Delph beyond that because I think he's the experience that Carlo Ancelotti prefers. I also think he's played left back before, naturally, at Manchester City. Like I said, look, we've pretty much seen the summary of Fabian Delph's Everton career. On Saturday, he basically was playing left wing back for 20 minutes, didn't do anything whatsoever, had to make one sprinted, picked up an injury that's probably going to see him out for longer than Lucas Digne's out. So that summarises Fabian Delph's career. We're paying him probably £80,000 to £100,000 a week to practically sit on the injury bed every single week. And I understand it's not his fault, but it is very frustrating. I think he's number 3 again because he's got that left back experience. And I think Carlo Ancelotti prefers that clearly to Niles Nkunku. Otherwise, Niles Nkunku would have been there on Saturday. And then number 4, I've gone with 4 players in each position. I've gone with 3 players, in each position. I've gone with 4 for left back. Number 4 is Ben Godfrey. Again, I'm not a massive fan of Ben Godfrey playing left back, even though he was absolutely brilliant last week. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that because I don't think he played well against Burnley. He was absolutely phenomenal against Burnley. The reason I'm not a massive fan of Ben Godfrey playing left back is because it's not his natural position, and because we've brought in a young centre back to mould him into being a top quality centre back. And if there's one thing that Ben Godfrey is absolutely exceptional at is that he wants to defend, he wants to be in there, he wants to throw tackles in, he wants to get involved. He's a big physical lad, and I think he's going to be a fantastic centre-back in the future. And I'd actually go as far as to saying in 2 or 3 years we may be struggling to keep a hold of Ben Godfrey. I think he's going to be that good. I also think he's got leadership qualities. You saw it on Saturday, he was shouting at James Rodriguez for a misplaced pass. This is a young lad who's been at Everton Football Club for a matter of weeks, who's shouting at a World Cup Golden Boot winner. And I know you might say, well, that's not a big thing, but that mentality is a big thing. A lot of players would be fuming at that, look and think, who played that pass? See, it was James, and go, oh, sorry, it's all right, don't worry. He didn't. He's got that winning mentality. He's got that leadership to say, hey, I don't care who you are and where you've come from. That wasn't good enough. Don't be playing me passes like that. I honestly think he's going to be a top defender in years to come, and you can already see signs of that. But I just don't really want him playing left back, because I just don't think it's his natural position. I don't think it helps his progression whatsoever. I'm very hesitant to say he can. I wouldn't mind him playing right back, because I think it's a similar situation there. I want Ben Godfrey to play centre half. I want him to be that leading centre half in this team, who you look at in a year or two to come and think you're one of the best centre halves in real football. So again, he's in there because he played there on Saturday and he was very good there. So I think he can provide backup at left back if need be. But ideally, I don't really want him. I don't really want him there if it can be helped, because I just think it might hinder his development. We'll go to right back then, and then we'll do the 2 centre halves. Right back, Seamus Coleman, of course, our number 1 right back, our captain. When he's fit, he plays every week. The problem with Seamus Coleman is he's not going to be fit for the entire season. For me, I've put an asterisk next to right back in the notes I've written down here. We need to go out and buy one in the summer. I know some people might say the summer's too late, we need to buy one in January, but let's all be very realistic here. This is Everton Football Club. We have a director of football who has actively come out on a couple of occasions and said he doesn't like the January transfer window. Carlo Ancelotti has spoke about the January transfer window not necessarily being a great window to do business in. So if we're being realistic, it's probably going to be the summer before we actively look at bringing in a first team right back. We might go and bring in one in January on a 6-month loan, similar to Sidibe, who can come in and play in place of Seamus Coleman when Seamus gets injured. But for me, in the summer, we absolutely have to be going out and buying a first team right back. I've said this before, the transition for Seamus Coleman, unfortunately, because he is a club legend and he's been absolutely brilliant for Everton Football Club, and I love Seamus Coleman more than I've loved most Everton players. He may be my favourite Everton player ever, because he come in with such a low transfer fee. I remember his first couple of games for Everton, a lot of people thinking this lad's never going to make it, and he worked and he became the best right back in world football at one stage. But the reality of the situation is, I think we're sort of in a situation like we were with Leighton Baines in 2018, where we need to bring in that Luca Dean style of player to play right back, who plays week in, week out, and then Seamus Coleman can come in every now and then, maybe in the cup games, or maybe to replace said first choice right back when need be. Again, I absolutely love Seamus, and I think ability wise, if football was based purely on ability, you'd be able to go for years and years to come, but ultimately it's based on your fitness, it's based on your body, and I just don't think Seamus Coleman's body is able to keep up with playing 38 games of the season. And that's okay if you've got somebody to come in and replace him. That's okay if he's not your first choice. What's not okay is when you're pretty much relying your whole right-hand side of the defence on that one player, and then when he's out after 6 or 7 games because his body has picked up an injury, or because he's picked up an injury on international duty, you're then sort of sitting there thinking, well, who comes in now? Who do we replace him with? We started the season with John Joe Kenny being the backup right back. That hasn't worked, clearly, because John Joe Kenny isn't even in the matchday squad at the moment. What's going on there? Again, similar to the Niles Nkunku situation, I'm not completely sure, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it may be well a case of Carlo Ancelotti not believing John Joe Kenny's good enough to play in this Everton team, which, fair enough, he may be right. Steam just froze a second. Let me just wait for it to reload back up. It should load back up in a second. It usually does this. Give it a minute. Come on. Come on. Fix yourself. Get yourself back up. See, we talk about Seamus, Coleman and not being fit enough to, to carry it for 38 games, and then the stream decides to just absolutely do itself in. But yeah, look, we started the season with John Joe Kenny as our backup right back. It's become quite clear over the last couple of weeks or so, quite similar to the Nkunku situation, that, Carlo Ancelotti doesn't really see John Joe Kenny as a good enough back or full back. Otherwise, he'd be in the team. I know he's picked up an injury recently, and that might be why. But again, I think he'd be in the team a lot more than he is if Carlo believed he was good enough to back up to back up Seamus Coleman. So that's it for me. We absolutely need a right back in the summer, and I'm not going to go into talking about who and who it could be and who the potential we could sign, because that's a topic for another video. We will sit down at one point, hopefully with Tom T Logic, and talk about right backs and who we can bring in the summer to improve this Everton team. But I think that for me is our main priority. Forget goalkeeper at the moment. Again, forget another central midfielder to play with Alan Decore. For me, absolutely, right back has to be a priority. And I'm not talking right back as in a Jabril Sidibe type player who comes in on a year-long loan, can't really defend, but he can run. So when Seamus is a bit tired, we can bring him on to just run up and down a bit. Or when Seamus picks up a knock, we can bring him on to play a couple of games. I'm talking a first team right back, Luca Dean style, a player that comes in and plays 38 games in a season, and Seamus becomes that backup. And Seamus mightn't like that. And again, that might go against, because Seamus is the captain of the football club. However, it just needs to be done for me. It absolutely needs to be done. And again, like I said, I love Seamus. I really, really do love Seamus. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's a fantastic role model. I think he's a fantastic leader. And I think when he's at his best, he still is very, very good. But you don't get that consistency out of him because his body just isn't able to do it at the moment. And for me, we need to replace that ultimately. So in terms of backup, I've put John Joe Kenny as number 2, purely because he is, again, a bit like the Nkunku situation, our only other natural right back in the squad, who, again, is in and around the squad and who can play if given the option. I don't feel as strongly about the John Joe Kenny situation because I've seen a lot more of John Joe Kenny than he have now in Nkunku, and I've still got me reservations of whether John Joe Kenny's good enough, to be honest with you. I think he still needs to improve massively positional wise. I think going forward, he's a decent player. He always gives it 110%, and he loves to throw a tackle in as well. But I just think, again, I don't know. I understand a little bit more if Carlo doesn't think John Joe's good enough to ultimately be in this team in the Premier League week in, week out. But if that's the case, then that's even more reason as to why we need to go out and sign a first team right back, in the summer at the latest. And then, again, back up to John Joe Kenny, number 3 in command, I've gone with Ben Guffrey. Again, not ideal because, like I said before, I want him to be playing centre-half. I want him to be playing there. I want him to be developing his career there. But he can play right back. He's done it before. He's done okay there. And if absolute need be, he can play there. Before we get into the centre-backs then, so just to go over that, left-back I've gone with Dean as number 1, Nkunku number 2, Delph number 3, Godfrey number 4, and right backs have gone Coleman number 1, but in desperate need of a right back. Kenny number 2 and Godfrey number 3. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. Really, really would appreciate if you could share the stream. Social media, Twitter, Instagram. Let's try and get as many people in as we possibly can. William says, yeah, our best defender, Cheese, but he cannot play on the left-hand side. Centre-back, possibly we signed Godfrey because left centre-back was a problem. Godfrey is clearly the most comfortable on the left. Cheese says, I didn't specify where Holgate was playing, mate. I said that him and Keane are our best partnership. We are going to talk about the centre-backs in a moment because I think it's interesting. William says, maybe Holgate comes in for Keane at right centre-back when he is back to his best. And Wemio says, yes, Cheese, but if you play Keane and Holgate, then one of them is out of position. Neither of them are good on the left. Cheese says, debatable that, mate. Wemmy says, yeah, IRV defends terribly on his left foot and passing with your left. Don't make you two-footed. Godfrey is more two-footed, and he isn't even equally comfortable off both feet. And Cheese says, yeah, mate, I completely agree. Teams like Chelsea and Liverpool have players on the bench who can walk into most teams below. We have the likes of Tosun, Gylfi and Bernard. And he also says, Wimmy says, knows his position. Cheese says, huge drop of class between the starting 11 and the bench, and completely using the left foot is being two-footed. Yeah, there is. That's another big issue. I think at Everton Football Club at the moment, as you look at our bench, and it is absolutely dreadful. It is utterly dreadful. I said it on Saturday, within the first 20 minutes when we weren't playing very good before Fabian Delph come off, I looked at our bench and I thought, if this starting 11 can't pick themselves up here, we are bollocks, because that bench isn't going to do anything for us. And Stu says, Ancelotti will bring in a proper centre-half in January to partner Mina. Everton doesn't need Keane as a major centre-half, probably kick and chase player. I actually think Michael Keane's our best centre-back, to be honest with you. But there you go. Fair enough. Anyway, let's get into centre-halves now then. Again, it's an interesting one, and it's an interesting one for a couple of reasons. First reason, Michael Keane and Mason Holgate, towards the back end of last season, were our best centre-back partnership, and we're actually very good. In fact, Mason Holgate, from probably, I'd say, Duncan Ferguson taking over as manager at this time last season, or around about this time last season, I'd probably say Mason Holgate had been our best defender from that point until the end of the season, obviously, when he picked up that injury. He was absolutely brilliant. So solid, comfortable on the ball, good in the air, got forward, brought the ball out, confident, threw the tackles in when he needed to, timed his tackles, strong, out-muscled players, off the ball. He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. And it's a real shame that Mason Holgate picked up that injury when he did, because honestly, like I said, him and Michael Keane were an absolutely fantastic partnership towards the back end of last season. They really were, and I would have loved to have seen Mason Holgate and Michael Keane start this season as a centre-back partnership to see how they could do, especially with a much better midfield in front of them. Then you've got Michael Keane and Yerry Mina, who started the season together. Our defensive back line for the opening 5 games of the season was Dean, Coleman, Mina and Keane. We won 4 out of 5 of those games and through the Merseyside derby, in which we come back in. Defensively, again, we were conceding goals, stupid goals, but we were defending relatively well in those games. Yerry Mina blew hot and cold. The Brighton game, he was absolutely fantastic. The West Brom game, he gave away, he again, for me, he was at fault for at least one of the goals. But, ultimately, we didn't lose a game. In fact, we didn't drop points with those two as the centre-back partnership for the opening 5 games of the season. That only changed once that defence was taken to bits. I think Seamus Coleman was injured in the Brighton game. He come out and ultimately, in the derby, he come out and then Ben Godfrey went in, and then the games that followed that, obviously, we know what happened. And since then, we've changed the defensive line in terms of centre-backs an awful lot. The left-backs changed, the right-backs changed. So it's a difficult one. You then look at Ben Godfrey, who we brought in £20 million this summer and has been absolutely fantastic for Everton so far. Like I said, positional wise, he probably could improve a little bit, but defensively, he wants to defend, he wants to throw a tackle in. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he loves to get in players' faces, he loves to be that commander, which is exactly what we're missing for me in this Everton team. And like I said, he's actually played out of position more times than he's played in his natural position, and when he's played out of position, he's been brilliant, and when he's played the centre-half, he's played in a 3, and I actually don't think a 3 fits Ben Godfrey very well. In fact, I don't think a 3 fits any of the centre-halves very well. So I would love to see Ben Godfrey in a 2 at the back formation, be it next to Holgate, next to Keane, even next to Mina. I'd love to see him in that natural 4-4-2. And then, of course, going back into it, you've got Yerry Mina. Again, for me, I think, personally, I think you can make a case for Mason. I think you can make a case for Michael Keane. I think you can make a case for Ben Godfrey. And you probably can make a case for Yerry Mina to be one of our best 2 centre-halves. But I think that case is made on the basis that he's played an awful lot of games and he's got an awful lot of experience in there. I honestly think Yerry Mina needs to be more consistent. I don't think he's consistent enough whatsoever. One week you get a brilliant performance with him, an absolutely brilliant performance, and the next week it's dreadful. It's absolutely dreadful. Positional wise, off the ball play, it's just poor. I think on the ball he's a good centre half, and he always has been. He very rarely has a poor game on the ball. He's good bringing it out. He's good with the ball at his feet, but the other bits, in terms of positional wise and being in the right place at the right time, I think sometimes he just massively struggles with. And then you've got Jared Branthwaite, of course, who again, probably by the fact that the other players in front of him have got more Premier League experience and obviously a little bit older and a little bit more savvy to the Premier League, he probably doesn't get in there. But again, Every game Jared Branthwaite has played in, he's been fantastic for Everton. He come in towards the back end of last season when we had significant injuries to certain players, and he was absolutely brilliant. And I remember him playing against Aston Villa, and he was just fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic. He hasn't had a bad game in an Everton shirt, still young, coming from Carlisle. Again, third, fourth division English team, and he's been absolutely brilliant. Now, don't get me wrong, that might have just been that fantastic honeymoon period at the start of a player's career, and he probably does have a lot to improve on, and I wouldn't say, Jared Branthwaite's our best option, but I think, again, similar to Ben Godfrey, he is definitely one for the future. He looks a brilliant young centre-half. So then it leads you to deciding who is our best centre-back partnership based off that conversation. You've got a brilliant partnership towards the back end of last season in Holgate and Keane. You've got a decent partnership at the start of this season when we were winning games in Mina and Keane. Just dropped me pen, that's what you heard there. You've got Ben Godfrey, who's come in and being very good, and is showing those leadership skills and those qualities that we need in a centre half. And then I've thrown Gabamon in there as well, just to make up the numbers. But again, obviously, he'd be a player that would be coming in if we absolutely had nobody else. For me, at the moment, I think this changes depending on if everybody's fit. And I know at the start I said if everybody's fit, that's what I'm going for. At the moment, I'd go for Godfrey and Keane, because I really want to see more of Ben Godfrey in his natural centre-back position. I think he's been very good since he's come in at Everton Football Club. Okay, there's been a couple of situations where maybe his inexperience has gotten the best of him. Penalty he gave away against Fulham being one of them. But I think, again, he's got those natural leadership skills. He's big. He's very good on the ball. He's strong. He's not afraid to get himself in front of players. He's not afraid to throw a challenge in. Michael Keane, I do think Michael Keane's our best centre-half. To be perfectly honest with you, I think the difference in Michael Keane from 12 months ago to now is night and day. More often than not, Michael Keane puts in a solid defensive performance. Again, positional-wise, he does need to improve. There has been a couple of occasions recently where his positioning has come into question, but more often than not, he puts in a decent, solid defensive performance. Very good in the air, gets rid of a lot of chances that the opposition create. Decent on the ball as well. So at the moment, I'd probably go with Godfrey and Keane. But I think overall, when everybody's fit, I think at the moment I'd go with Holgate I'd go with Godfrey and Keane at the moment, and when everybody's fit, I think I'd go with Holgate and Keane, because I just think that partnership towards the back end of last season was very strong. It was a very good defensive partnership, and I would love for Ben Godfrey to be involved in that defensive partnership, but I really don't want to play a back three, and I just think it'd be nice if Ben sort of, again, forced his way into this team, really, turned up at Finch Farm and said to Carlo Ancelotti, look, I should be starting week in, week out here, absolutely, no doubt about it. Showed those leadership skills. He's still got a lot to improve on, as has Mason Holgate, by the way. But I just think that Mason, again, is probably a little bit ahead of him in the pecking order for me. But Ben Godfrey is definitely on the brink of it, because I think he's been very good. Like I said, those positional issues and the little silly mistakes need to be ironed out, but that doesn't help when he's playing left back one week, right back the next week, playing in a 3, the next week playing in a 2, the next week. He hasn't had any consistency, and that's the one big thing we need at this football club, is consistency. And I think if Ben Godfrey is a part of a consistent centre-back partnership in terms of 2 centre-backs, then I think we'll really start to see the best of him. So there you go. That is my defensive back line. When everybody's fit, I've got to go with Dean, Keane, Holgate and Coleman. But Ben Godfrey is massively knocking on that door, by the way. And if Mason Holgate doesn't step it up a level as well, I understand he's been out injured. I understand the games in which he played, he probably hasn't been 100% fit. Certainly not match fit, because he's been out for quite a sustained period of time. But again, Ben Godfrey is very close to knocking on that door. And then Seamus Coleman for me, who, again, when fit, absolutely brilliant, but you'll probably get a run of 5 games, of 5 consistent games about Seamus before he picks up a knock, or he has to come out because he needs resting, and we can't rely on that. So there you go. That is my best defensive back line for Everton, along with players that should be coming in if either one of those players drop out. I don't want to see any more of this Iwobi go left back, Davis go right back, Godfrey go basically anywhere, because you can play anywhere. If Luca Dean comes out, I want to see who the number 2 is. My number 2 is Nkunku. Carlo's number 2 might be Delph. Number 3 might be Nkunku. if Luca Dean's out, whoever Carlo's number 2 is needs to step in. If that player's out, whoever Carlo's number 3 is needs to step in. I really, really struggle to believe that Nkunku isn't even in the top 5 left-backs in Carlo Ancelotti's mind at the football club at the moment. So there you go. That is basically the overall conclusion of this live stream. Everton need to be more stable defensively. We need to be more organised. We need to play a 4-at-the-back formation because everybody understands it universally, whereas not everybody understands the 5 at the back. And you need to be able to swap players out and understand who's being swapped out when you rotate the squad ultimately, not just throw anyone in anywhere. Take a player out, replace him with the next in line. And there you go. And then obviously another big talking point, we need a right back in the summer. Absolutely desperately. Let's get into the live comments then before we finish up the live stream. Big thanks to everybody as well if you're watching live. Really, really do appreciate it. Like I said, leave your best defensive lineups in the comment section and we'll quickly go through them before we finish. Please do leave the video a like as well if you are new and you are enjoying. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Big thanks for all of the support. Daniel says Nkunku won't play 100 and it's a joke. Cheese and Cheese says he tried to float them against Burnley, which is ridiculous. He also says I think he's a good crosser, caused trouble for defenders in that Fulham game with the whip crosses. I agree, you're talking about Iwobi. Big Nos says, I agree, Iwobi is awful at crossing. He hasn't improved, but he's improved. He's still not good enough. Look, ultimately, I think consistency again. Big word. I've been an Everton fan for 22 years, and if you were to say to me, name one word that would sum up Everton, I'd say, well, not one word, name a phrase that would sum up Everton, I'd say we're inconsistently consistent. We're consistently inconsistent. And I think that's been the case for 22 years of my life, to be honest with you. And I think Iwobi and his crossing falls into that bracket. He can put in a brilliant cross, at one point in the game. 10 minutes later, he can put in a stinker. Daniel says he'd smash it. I've watched him talking about Nkunku, I believe. And he also says some thrive to play on that opportunity. Big Nos says a right back is a must win. He says hopefully we get a right back before the summer camp. Well, again, if you were to say to me, Daniel says good right back. Big Nos says Coleman, Godfrey, Holgate and Dean. Fair enough. On the right back situation in January, let me put this to you. If you're watching this YouTube video, by the way, leave all of these things in the comment section. I will get involved with as many of them as possible. Let me put this to you. Would you rather Everton went out and spent £10 million in January on a right back who comes in when Seamus Coleman's not fit, and who might come in for Seamus in the last 20 minutes of a game, but out and out, quality-wise, isn't as good as Seamus Coleman, but he could come in as a backup? Or would you rather us, and then, spend that 10 million on that player and then say in the summer, right, we're not buying a right back now because we've just signed him? Or would you rather wait for the summer for Everton to go out and spend 20-30 million on a right back who plays week in, week out, and Seamus becomes the backup? Daniel says should have signed Gabriel. Cheese and Cheese says think Iwobi has improved. One thing he's changed is he's actually running at defenders and not turning back. Too late for Bernard to learn that. Wayne says honestly worry if we don't sign a right back and a right winger and a backup striker, we won't get top 6. No Europe, see Richie and possibly Dean. Well, again, in order for those players to stay, we have to be showing progress. Luke says, in my opinion, Dean, Keane, Holgate and Coleman, but neither Keane or Mason can play comfortably on the left. There you go. That is a good point, whereas Ben Guffrey, possibly can. Daniel says, would you sign Dele Alli? No. If the rumours are to be believed, where it's going to be a loan deal, then potentially, but I wouldn't be spending a lot of money on him. William says, couldn't even be angry if Richie or Dean left us. They should be playing in Europe at least. Exactly, mate. You're spot on there. Union says, report Spurs, Arsenal and Everton plan to scout Leon Bailey this week. I love Leon Bailey. I think he's a brilliant player. Daniel says, want to see Richarlison play high and press. Swimmy says, I wouldn't mind Holgate right back, Keane and Godfrey centre backs, and Nkunku left back. I wouldn't mind seeing that either. Big Nos says, want to see Richie spending more time on his feet and picking his sucking bottom lip off the floor. Again, he goes down when he gets kicked, which, to be fair to Richarlison, he never dives, which there's this weird media agenda that he dives when he just doesn't. Cheese and Cheese says, well, we would have been good at right wing back with a defender covering him, not at right back. Needs to be played on the right wing, could push James centrally. Potentially, it's something that we could look at. Big Nos says, Godfrey's been brilliant. He also says, Branthwaite will be class, no doubt. Daniel says, Godfrey needs to play regular, builds confidence fast as lightning. Yeah, absolutely spot on. Luke says, I feel like Jared Branthwaite could be a very good player. I like him, but I can't see him getting a spot in this team, unfortunately. Not at the moment, mate, not at the moment, but hopefully in the future. you know, I do think he's going to be a top player. A top player. And she says, completely agree, mate, but the problem is that he had Nkunku and even Davis, and yet he picks a lad who can't get the ball off the ground and has no passion for the club. Well, exactly, and again, Fabian Delph played on Saturday because he played left back for Manchester City, and practically because he done all right there at times, and that's why he was in that team on Saturday, not because of what he's done for Everton. Daniel says, does it make you want to cry? Coleman has finished soon with the Everton passion. I might shed a tear. Bainland says, wait till the summer for a right back and put Kenny in for now. I believe that as well, mate. And she says, Dele Alli failed to pass it to an open Keane. He's unstable. And Daniel says, nice to see Godfrey show passion. I think he's going to step it up. I agree, mate. I agree. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. We will be back on Friday, 5:15 p.m, of course, with the game preview ahead of our Premier League fixture against Chelsea on Saturday night. We'll also have the weekly news roundup on Friday, so don't forget to check that one out as well. Big thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please do leave a like. Massive thanks to everybody in the live comments as per usual. Really do appreciate each and every person. If you're watching as a YouTube video, get your thoughts in the comment section and we'll try and get involved with as many of them as possible. Big thanks for watching. Like I said, leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you soon.